sector. For the NHS, we're delivering the portal for the electronic staff record. So this is the HR portal for the whole of the NHS. So it's a really big meaty project with 1.6 million users, and we're working with IBM on the. We're doing the sort of back end. We're doing all the reporting, user experience on that side of it, and that's actually a wireframe project. Interesting. We're doing work with local government, so we've done some digital transformation projects with Bristol City Council, also with Medway Council, a bit late. We've done some work with the LGA, which I'm going to touch on later. I work with the British Library at the moment, do some massive sort of digitisation programs with helping with infrastructure and user experience of that, which is really exciting projects. And if you want, we're going to be available later if you want to know more about this project, if it catches your interest, but I don't want to too much of a feature this stage. Hopefully that gives you an idea of what we do for now. Okay. Any questions on digital writing before I go on to the digital maturity models? Okay, so as I say, the digital maturity models, what we would do quite a lot of digital strategy work with customers in the public sector, and what we were struggling with is actually setting the right, extracting the right initial objectives from them in terms of what are the goals that we were trying to achieve. And so we've turned to digital maturity models as a way of helping with that. So the idea of the digital maturity model is it can help each organisation assess how they're doing in terms of various criteria, and that enables them to maybe look at which areas they want to work on in terms of digital transformation, whether it's do you need to do more upskilling, the fact that your systems need to be sorted out, what do you need to do first and at what level, and it really helps you sort of prioritise what you're trying to do, and that's why it's important, and why you do see some organisations like, I don't know, Deloitte or whatever, they offer that you can go online and find out how you're doing with digital maturity, fill in this online survey or whatever, but it's a bit, it can be a bit gimmicky, some of that stuff. It takes a bit more depth of analysis to do, rather than just a sales thing, you know. Anyway. So the main pillars of digital maturity, in terms of government, so we've worked through our model in terms of government sector, so that it's more specific there, because there's a lot of stuff in a lot of the models that's more to do with more commercial considerations, which aren't that directly relevant. So the key things are, we've split them up this way: so leadership, workforce development, user focus, culture, technology. So I'll talk about each of one of these individually. So leadership, this can be a tricky one. So often leadership can be, it can go from one extreme to the other sometimes. So what we find is that leadership often can be very resistant and very enthusiastic, and what you want to do is try and get your leadership somewhere in the middle and a bit more nuanced about what you can achieve, what's realistic and at what stage. So often what you get is a leadership like, we must cut costs and that's it. And there's no, they're not very open to a broader conversation. And later on, it's like, no, we want to do everything now. It's like, okay, well, that's not, so, you know, managing leadership can be quite hard. I think that, you know, if you've got a digitally aware leadership team, then that makes a massive difference in terms of strategy, and in terms of being able to set achievable goals. And there's obviously things that, if you are in that goal, things that you can do to get up to speed, and I think working more closely with your digital teams is one of them. I like to. Workforce development. So yeah, so this is all about investment to a certain degree. I think what often you have is you might have like a web team, and you might have an IT team, and the web team might just be typically just involved in like a production team, really, being told to do, you know, to put this information online or do this, do that, and they kind of, it's a top-down approach, and they're kind of just a siloed little department. And you have IT, they have their own set of priorities, which is all about service delivery and so on and so forth. So in terms of workforce development, the key thing really is that what you can do is you can start with your web team, but they need to be more transformative in the way that they're working with the rest of the organisation. So that because you can't really silo this stuff off if you're going to fundamentally change the way the organisation works to deliver digital services. And so that's often what we do is we spend a lot of time working with web teams and empowering them to sort of drive the strategy of the whole organisation rather than being sort of quite a low sort of grade in terms of where they're expected in the organisation in terms of what they're doing. They can be much more vital to that organisation. So there's skills around. So part of it is freeing them up to be more strategic, being able to be more strategic, have more of an impact by better systems to do that. So all that's actual software to do that. So, does that make sense? Often there's also like in terms of things like agile, when you're moving from a typical sort of waterfall model to an agile model, there's a whole new set of skills and roles involved in that. So we do a lot of coaching to help people with that. So you see GDS, you see all the roles in GDS, you try to map them to the organisational roles that you've got, for example. Compared to the GDS service standard, often that don't match very well, and you need to think about that. User focus. So this is something that GDS have been very good at evangelising about. So what we find is putting the citizen first. All this is quite sort of well accepted knowledge now, but the way that you go about it is often lacking in certain organisations. So it's maybe the first step is to start doing more user research as to what users or what citizens actually want, the best they want to receive their services. But then it's having the system and processes in place to keep measuring user feedback all the way through the process. So it's not just, we'll do some user research and then we'll build some stuff. It's like, we'll do some user research and then we'll start to build and we'll keep testing as we build and we'll keep going and iterating. So it's kind of having that kind of, that's a really big change for a lot of organisations to keep listening to their customers all the time and continuously delivering in short cycles. So that's what that needs to be to really be successful. A lot of this is, the way this like this works is we're talking about a risk. So the idea that kind of things very tightly puts them down before you start, and it's highly specified. And with a lot of, if you're going to borrow from lean and agile techniques, you need to loosen up in a way. So the idea is that you're willing to take a chance and to try something out, test your assumptions and see if they work or don't work, and be prepared to fail and fail early. It's easy to say, it's very hard often to change a culture where people can be quite sort of defensive or protective about what they do, especially if there's cuts going on and you feel, people can feel quite sort of threatened by that. And to bring in a culture that can be that open to actually testing out hypotheses can be quite challenging, but it is absolutely necessary to deliver good digital services and to transform the organisation. And technology. So this is something we do against quite a lot, is that the organisation would like to achieve a lot in terms of delivering automated digital services, maybe to save money initially. But it can be quite challenging in the sense that the legacy systems that are sitting there just are the Achilles heel to all of that, because you can't really automate all your services with nice user experience if your legacy systems are dated and not interoperable, not standards-based, just not flexible. So we do a lot of work, but when we engage with customers, a lot of things, but what we do very early is to do a landscape assessment of the IT systems and understand what the limitations are. When setting goals just can't be achieved. Okay, so just to summarise, key things, so it's developing with people, so we talked a lot about that, just often starting with your web team and maybe joining your web team and your IT team together and developing a new sort of digital culture there rather than web and IT, pulling in different directions. So and looking at the overall leadership side of it as well and doing that. It's often, actually, the leadership's not the hardest bit, often it's the middle piece There's like a middle tier, middle management that often can be quite hard to adjust in terms of being used to sort of a Prince 2 kind of world, and they're having to change the way they work to a more sort of experimental, dynamic, sort of fluid approach. They can be very resistant, so that's another area to consider. Process. So yeah, I'll talk to you about that. I think it's really getting into sort of agile and lean way of working, and building systems that you can take ownership of and deliver dynamically. And often, if you're working with, like, for example, closed software vendors, they don't work to. If you want to work with, say, for example, 2-week sprints and deliver software rapidly, and you need to change within a piece of software. But from a proprietary piece of software, then you can't change it, and that can be a real bottleneck to. So when you're sorting out your systems, you really want to be thinking more about open source and open standards, so that it empowers you to be able to make change. And then procurement is really important as well. Having a procurement process will facilitate all that. But that's kind of a lot better now. I think the new digital outcomes process, which is used for local procurement framework, was pretty good. Using that looks like a good way to go. But obviously, it also means your procurement team needs to start understanding what needs to happen here. Readiness, organisational readiness, again, the technology, infrastructure, the key one, investment, having a well-articulated strategy. So, as I was saying earlier, we go into a lot of public sector organisations, and it's quite startling how there isn't really a clear set of objectives, not objectives that you can actually measure and check that you're actually being successful. You might get, we want to save X number of pounds, or that kind of thing, but that's as far as it often goes. It's really just cost cutting. These more strategic, more deep-reaching objectives aren't often there, which is worrying. If you want to have a successful project, you need to be able to articulate what success is. So that's what a lot of these tools will hopefully help you to explore. Okay. So, any questions on that section? I will stop and have a pause in each section. Does that all make sense? Okay, so in terms of the vision aspect of it, I think this is a very, a lot of these frameworks that we're setting up, we're sort of simplifying it and keeping it very high level for this presentation. But I think even at this level, it's very, it articulates something quite key. A lot of what happens from our perspective is that for example, local authorities or the public sector organisations, they're often sort of aimed at cost reduction really quite heavily. And these improving customer experience and decision making and more fundamental changes, that's not really part of the picture for the first phase. And then we do the first phase, aimed at cost reduction. There's a massive learning where there's something wrong. So that's what the success looks like, the maturing side of it. Let's do that. So then they want to go from like cost reduction to full fundamental change. So what we try to do there is really suggest that we either start at this stage or the developing stage, or if we go earlier and keep that a small trial and try and get our customers on this sort of developing stage, because it's too big a jump to go from early to maturing, and all the learnings and things you put in place to start to improve customer experience and have a more data-driven process will eventually facilitate that mature model, but it can take years in steps. So we tend to go from one extreme to the other, and that's the thing to really avoid. Okay. So when we look at goals, we look at goals at different levels. So we look at organisational goals, departmental goals, and project goals. And I think the key thing is obviously that they're all aligned. And if you explore them at those different levels, then you're starting on the process of actually mapping how you achieve your fundamental organisational goals. So in this example, for example, we have one of our pillars is workforce development and realisation. Maybe we're on the early stage of workforce development and we want to get into that developing stage. So that's an objective of the project. So how do we do that? we work on the team's design skills. And design is not just about wireframing or pictures. Design is a much deeper subject than that. As Diego will tell you more soon. So how do we do that? Well, we maybe we'll get a service like, I don't know, your local authority, for example, pay your council tax or whatever, and we'll design that in a user-centered way. We'll get the service delivery people in, and they'll learn more about how to design a digital service as part of that process, and that'll enable us to improve those team design skills and just to get that organisational goal of developing. So it's all about the mapping all the way through, and we'll go to another tier of mapping. I would take project goals and map those through to actual deliverables, and we'll go also for that shortly. We talk about interdisciplinary teams in terms of the actual project goals. So this is what that typically looks like. Something like this is what we expect. So this is your core team. You see in the orange colour. And I think that's what the mixture that could be a mixture of us and the customer. And often what we'll be doing is we'll be mentoring a lot of customer staff to actually fulfil these roles permanently. They might sort of temporarily require support. So the idea is that we're trying to empower. You really need to have your own core team to really deliver this stuff long term, but often it's just not there to start. It's really our role is really to come in and provide that support and empowerment and so you pick up these skills and learn them themselves. So for example, that even in terms of technology as well, so for example what we'll often do is we'll build a platform, and we'll maybe build some exemplar services, so we may build. So for example, we'll deliver a platform which will be something that has all the infrastructure in place to connect all your back-end systems and enables you to sort of move more quickly with developing systems. The idea is that we'll build some exemplar systems on that, so we maybe will keep with the example, pay your council tax, we'll deliver that, then the toolkit's there for you to deliver the next set of services in terms of design patterns, in terms of technical components, so you can start to build the new services yourself longer term. And that's the key thing, I think, is that, if we can get across one thing, is that for success you need to take more ownership than the usual supplier-customer relationship won't suffice, in terms of you can't rely on your suppliers to deliver this because you need to transform your organisation. You can't delegate that responsibility. You won't be able to be a digital service delivery type of organisation if you do. So that's So what happens is that you'll maybe become, say it was council paid council tax, maybe a service manager and some other service experts that are seconded into the team while you're designing that service. And this team has to sort of wrap around that. And the other key thing really is that the service manager takes ownership of this all the way through, so they're not just brought in, consulted, they answer a few questions and then thanks, we'll go and build it now. They're involved in the whole process and they're responsible for its success. Again, if you don't do that, you won't in terms of success on that. So the key that culpability is important as well in terms of that. Does that all make sense? Is that useful?
Sorry, I think I missed it. Are you saying the bottom team is your company, or is that a mix of?
It should be a mix, ideally, because you want to take ownership of this process, so you can do it. Obviously, especially if you're trying to save costs, the key thing is to have a strong, instead of going for cost reduction from day one, if you actually invest in building your team with support from extra suppliers that can actually just enable you to get off to the right start, so you've got the right practices but also the right components in place, so it's all of a high quality, and then you can learn from that and increase the size of your team as you go on.
But do you find that's happens? Because I'm just thinking, I'm from local government and our teams are getting smaller, and I just don't know how we would be able to have that number of people.
Well, it depends on the size of your organisation. What organisation are you from?
I'm from Cambridge County Council.
Cambridgeshire. So if you don't, a lot of councils are going down the other route of cutting the staff and just outsourcing it because they are having to reduce their numbers. But it's a false economy to do that with the way that, because already public sector is getting way behind the private sector in terms of digital transformation and transforming their organisations, innovating, and if they just give, if there's no core skills left within the organisation to drive that, then you're going to get further behind. So I'm not saying that it's a leadership issue. In the leadership has to make that decision, but this is a better way to go in the long term. They will save them money in the long term.
And is that the sort of discussion you say when you do the maturity model, when you speak to the leadership or assess that? Is that the sort of conversation?
Yeah, so we're setting the organisational goals. We need the decision makers available to go through that, to look at the digital maturity models, to understand the benefits of raising themselves in various areas and what the benefits of that would be. What typically happens is that the real fear is it's too little too late. So what will happen is the leadership don't realise that they're sort of writing off the nose to snuff the face by cost cutting and cutting all of their own staff back. And then, so if you have to go to the first phase of cost cutting, then they realise, I see what we need to do. We need to transform the organisation. So that's fine. If they've got rid of all the stuff before they do that, obviously that's a real danger. So the sooner they can understand, the leadership can be educated, that's absolutely key from that perspective. I'm not saying this is accepted knowledge by everybody, but this is common sense to us. Any other questions?
Can I just ask you, what's the difference between designer and content designer in your design?
The content designer mainly works on the message, how it was the tone of voice, what sort of thing. The visual design, the designer is somebody who actually works more on the visual aspect.
So it's just a writer rather than the visual.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Well, I'll hand over to Diego, then he'll talk to you about in-house.
Okay, that's good.